History is written by the victors. We know the stories of Zeus on Mount Olympus. We know the power of the pharaohs in Egypt. We know the legends of Atlantis sinking beneath the waves. But what if I told you that long before many of these civilizations rose to power, there was an empire in the east with a name that sounds like a nightmare? Xich Quy, translated literally, the land of red demons. A kingdom where the first ruler could walk on the ocean floor as easily as land. A civilization birthed from the forbidden union of a dragon lord and an immortal fairy. A lineage that didn't start with Adam and Eve, but with a sack of 100 eggs. For centuries, this was dismissed as just a fairy tale, a myth to scare children. But as we dig deeper into the ancient texts and the misty geography of prehistoric Asia, a terrifyingly magnificent picture begins to emerge. Did this empire of red demons actually exist? And why does its borders map perfectly onto regions that define modern geopolitics today? Welcome to the lost mythology of Vietnam. Welcome to the legend of Xich Quy. To understand this story, we have to forget the Vietnam you see on a map today. Forget the S-shaped strip of land along the coast. We are going back 4,000 years. Maybe nearly 5,000 years. The name Xich Quy is the first mystery. In Sino-Vietnamese, Xi means red. Quy means demon, or sometimes a spirit of one of the 28 constellations in ancient astronomy. Why red demon? Was it a warning? No. In the context of ancient Southern philosophy, red represents the south, the element of fire, the sun, and vitality. The demon here isn't a monster from a horror movie. It refers to a celestial power, something fierce, brilliant, and untouchable. It was the kingdom of the shining southern star. The ruler of this land was King Duong Vong. He wasn't just a man. The legends say he possessed magical strength. He could travel underwater without drowning, command the beasts of the forest, and he was lonely. This is where the geography gets interesting. The legend centers around Dongting Lake. Today, this lake is deep inside China, but the legend of Xich Quy claims this was the northern border of the Viet people's ancestors. This claim alone challenges everything we know about the borders of ancient Southeast Asia. King Duong Vong needed a queen, but he didn't choose a human. He chose the daughter of the dragon lord of Dongting Lake. This marriage between a king of the land and a princess of the water set the stage for the birth of the most important figure in this mythology, Loch Long Quan, the dragon lord of Loch. And this is where the story goes from historical legend to high fantasy. Imagine a being with the blood of the Fire King and the Water Dragon running through his veins. That was Loch Long Quan. He succeeded his father to rule Xich Quy. But unlike typical emperors who sit on thrones, Loch Long Quan was a monster hunter. Literally. The texts describe 3 specific trials, 3 monsters that plagued the ancient land. This is Vietnam's version of the labors of Hercules. First, the fish demon, a gigantic sea creature that swallowed fishermen whole. Loch Long Quan didn't just fight it. He forged a block of iron, heated it white hot, and tricked the beast into swallowing it. Second, the 9-tailed fox, a shape-shifting demon that lived in a deep cave, luring innocent people to their deaths. Loch Long Quan drowned the cave, creating what is known today as Westlake in Hanoi. Third, the tree demon, an ancient tree spirit that corrupted the forest. He wasn't just a ruler, he was a terraformer. He made the land safe for civilization. He taught to people how to plant rice, how to cook, and how to survive. But Loch Long Quan had a secret. He was part dragon. He belonged to the water. He couldn't stay on land forever. He told his people, "If you are in danger, call my name and I will return." Then he vanished into the ocean depths. The land was safe, but it was empty of leadership. And nature abhors a vacuum. While the Dragon Lord ruled the seas, in the high mountains of the north, another power was rising. Enter Auco, an immortal fairy. Unlike the fairies in Western tales, like Tinkerbell, Eastern immortals are powerful, ageless beings, closer to elves in Lord of the Rings. She was a healer, a traveler, exploring the world. Fate brought her to Xich Quy, but she didn't find peace. She found invaders. Without the Dragon Lord, the land was being ravaged by aggressive northern tribes. Desperate, the people remembered the promise. They ran to the ocean's edge and screamed, "Father, why do you not save us?" Loch Long Quan returned. He drove out the invaders instantly. But then he saw her. The dragon king of the sea, the fairy princess of the mountains, fire and water, yin and yang. It was the perfect union. It was a marriage that was supposed to last forever. They lived together in harmony. And then the miracle happened. Aoko didn't give birth to a child. She gave birth to a sack, a flesh sack containing 100 eggs. 7 days later, the eggs cracked open. 100 sons were born, fully grown, strong, and needing no breast milk. These 100 sons are the legendary ancestors of the Bac Viet, the 100 Viet tribes. This creates a powerful cultural DNA. In Vietnam, people call each other Dong Bao, meaning born from the same sack. It sounds like a happily ever after, doesn't it? The monster hunter king and the healer queen, with their super army of 100 sons. But remember the fundamental rule of nature? Fire and water cannot coexist forever. One day, Lok Long Chuan looked at his wife and said words that would fracture the empire forever. I am of the dragon race, living in the water. You are of the fairy race, living on the mountains. Our natures are different, like fire and water. We cannot be together for the long term. This wasn't a divorce, it was a strategic separation, a division of assets that would define the geography of Southeast Asia. In most ancient mythologies, when gods fight or separate, the world burns. But in the legend of Xich Quy, the separation of the dragon and the fairy wasn't a war. It was a deployment. 50 will follow me to the sea, 50 will follow you to the mountains. This is the moment that defined the geopolitical DNA of Vietnam. Even today, thousands of years later, the Vietnamese people describe their country as a balance of forest and sea. Those who went to the mountains learned to tame the beasts, build fortresses on cliffs, and guard the northern borders. Those who went to the sea became master navigators, controlling the river deltas and the trade routes. They promised to aid each other. If the mountains were attacked, the sea would rise. If the coast was invaded, the mountains would descend. It was a mutual defense pact that predates NATO by 4,000 years. But they needed a leader to stay in the middle. The eldest son did not go to the deep ocean, nor the high peaks. He stayed in the midlands. He was crowned the first king of men. His title was Hung Vong, the Hung King, and he renamed the fragmented land of Xich Quy into something more organized, more civilized. He called it Van Lang. Van Lang. Historians debate what it means, but many agree it suggests a pure or bright land. But don't let the name fool you. This was not a primitive tribe living in caves. This was a civilization of the tattooed men. Because they lived in a region filled with crocodiles and water monsters, the people of Van Lang tattooed dragons and sea serpents covering their bodies. It was camouflage, a way to tell the predators, do not eat me, I am one of you. While the West was building empires on wheat, Van Lang built an empire on rice. This sounds simple, but wet rice cultivation requires massive social organization. You need irrigation, dikes, and strict calendars. The Hung King wasn't a distant god emperor hidden in a palace. The legends say he plowed the fields with his people. He was a farmer king. The monarchy was based on merit and strength, not just bloodline. Under the Hung Kings, Van Lang flourished. They divided the country into 15 administrative regions. They had ministers. They had generals. It was a functioning state in Southeast Asia, while much of the world was still figuring out basic governance. But here is where the skeptics jump in. They say, nice story, but where is the proof? Where are the pyramids? Where are the stone temples? The people of Van Lang didn't build with stone. They built with wood and bamboo, which rot away over millennia. So, for a long time, the West thought this civilization was a myth, until we found the drums. Enter the Dong Sun culture. In the early 20th century, archaeologists unearthed massive bronze drums across northern Vietnam. These weren't just musical instruments. They were masterpieces of metallurgy that rivaled anything in ancient China or Greece at the time. Look closely at the carvings. What do you see? You see longboats traversing the rivers. You see warriors with feather headdresses. You see scenes of organized rituals. This is the photograph of the Van Lang era. These drums proved that a highly advanced Bronze Age civilization existed exactly where and when the legends placed the Hung Kings. They mastered bronze casting to a level that baffles modern engineers. And the most terrifying part? They weren't just making drums. They were making weapons. Millions of arrowheads. The legends speak of a magic crossbow that could fire thousands of arrows at once, killing entire armies. For centuries, French and Chinese historians laughed at this. Just a fairy tale, they said. But then, archaeologists found the bronze triggers, complex, intricate mechanisms. When reconstructed, these weren't just crossbows, they were semi-automatic weapons of the ancient world. So the magic wasn't sorcery, it was engineering. The red demons of Xich Quy had evolved into the master engineers of Van Lang. The myth was a wrapper for the history. Xich Quy was the memory of the vast tribal confederations. Van Lang was the consolidation of state power, and the bronze drums were their crown jewels. But a civilization this rich, with gold in the rivers and rice in the deltas, attracts attention. The Hung dynasty lasted for 18 generations, a golden age of peace. But to the north, a new empire was rising, an empire that would eventually become China. And they were looking south with hungry eyes. The Dragon Lord had promised to return if his people were in danger, but as the iron armies of the north approached, where was he? By the 3rd century BC, the 18th Hung king had grown complacent. He spent more time drinking wine than drilling his armies. But remember the ancient pact? If the sea is weak, the mountains will descend. From the northern highlands came a chieftain named Tuc Phan. He wasn't an invader, he was a unifier. He merged his mountain tribes, Oviet, with the sea tribes, Lac-Viet. The result was a new superstate, O-Lac. Tuc Phan crowned himself An Duong Vong, and he knew that to survive against the giant empire to the north, the Qin dynasty, he needed more than just bravery. He needed a fortress that could not be breached. He moved the capital to the flatlands and built Ko Loa, the citadel of the snail. This is not a poetic name. It is a literal description of the most advanced defensive structure in Southeast Asian history. Imagine a city built like a spiral shell. 3 massive concentric walls, a maze of moats and earthen ramparts. If you were an enemy soldier attacking the outer wall, you weren't just facing a wall, you were entering a kill zone. The spiral design meant defenders could shoot you from the side and behind as you tried to navigate the maze. Legend says the construction was impossible. Demon spirits knocked down the walls every night, until a golden turtle god, Kim Quy, appeared to help the king. Skeptics see a myth. Engineers see a metaphor for mastering the soft, marshy soil of the delta. The golden turtle might simply represent the breakthrough in engineering technology that allowed them to build heavy ramparts on wet ground. With the spiral city and the magic crossbow, which we discussed earlier, An Duong Vong was untouchable. General Tru Da Jiao Tue, a renegade warlord from the north, attacked O-Lac repeatedly. Every time he was slaughtered. He couldn't get past the spiral walls. He couldn't survive the automatic crossbows. So Tru Da realized, I cannot win with force. I must win with deceit. Tru Da proposed a peace treaty. To seal the deal, he sent his son, Trong Tui, to marry the king's daughter, Princess Mi Chao. It looks like a diplomatic marriage. In reality, it was a long con espionage mission. Trong Tui was the Trojan horse, but instead of a wooden statue, he was a handsome, charming prince. Princess Mi Chao was innocent. She believed in the peace. She fell deeply in love with her husband. For years, Trong Tui played the role of the perfect son-in-law. He waited, he watched, he learned the layout of the spiral walls. Then came the fatal mistake. One night, Trong Tui asked his wife, "My love, why is your father's army invincible?" Blinded by trust, Mi Chao took him to the sacred armory. She showed him the magic crossbow. She showed him the claw of the golden turtle, the trigger mechanism that made the weapon work. While she slept, he disabled the weapon. He stole the technology. Then, he told her he needed to visit his father. Before he left, knowing war was coming, he asked her, "If suddenly we are separated by war, how will I find you?" She replied, "I have a cloak made of goose feathers. Wherever I run, I will drop feathers on the path so you can find me." Even in the face of separation, she was thinking of reunion. He was thinking of pursuit. Days later, the horizon turned black with Tru Da's army. King An Duong Vuong was calm. He sat playing chess, laughing. "Let them come," he said. "I have the magic crossbow." He raised the weapon. He pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. The machine gun of the Bronze Age was jammed. Panic. The impregnable spiral walls were now a trap for the defenders. The king grabbed his daughter, jumped on his horse, and fled south. As they rode, Mi Chao, still hoping her husband was innocent, dropped white goose feathers behind her. She didn't know she was laying a GPS trail for the enemy. Trong Tui led the army, following the white feathers right to them. They reached the sea. There was nowhere left to run. Desperate, the king cried out, "Golden Turtle God, why have you abandoned me? Where is the enemy?" The golden turtle rose from the waves. It didn't point to the army behind. It pointed at the horse. "The enemy," the god said, "is sitting right behind you." The king turned around. He saw the feathers. He saw the truth. The empire wasn't lost because of weakness. It was lost because of love. In a moment of rage and duty, An Duang Vuong drew his sword and executed the princess. He then walked into the sea, disappearing into legend. When Trong Tui arrived, he found only her body. The victory turned to ash in his mouth. Legend says he took her body back to the citadel, buried her, and then drowned himself in the well where she used to wash her face. To this day, people say if you wash pearls in the water of that well, they become incredibly shiny. A ghostly reminder of a pure love that destroyed a civilization. With the fall of Ko Loa Citadel, the Empire of Red Demons officially vanished from the map. For the next 1,000 years, yes, 1 millennium, Vietnam became a province of Imperial China. Usually, this is where the story ends. Look at history. When the Roman Empire occupied Gaul, they became French. When the Arabs swept through North Africa, the local cultures were absorbed. After 1,000 years of occupation, the distinct identity of a small tribe should have been erased completely. They burned the books. They melted the bronze drums. They taught a new language. They tried to rewrite the software of the people. But the software had a firewall. The firewall was the myth. You can burn books, but you cannot burn a story told by a grandmother to her grandchild. For 10 centuries, while the officials spoke foreign tongues in the palaces, the villagers in the rice fields kept the old stories. "We are not from here," We are not subjects of the North. We are the children of the dragon and the grandchildren of the fairy. This specific mythology created a psychological armor. It convinced the people that they were a heavenly race with a separate origin. It made assimilation impossible because you cannot turn a dragon into a snake. Every time a rebellion sparked, and there were many, the leaders didn't call for a revolution. They called for a restoration. They were fighting to reclaim the legacy of the Hung Kings. Fast forward to today. If you visit Vietnam on the 10th day of the 3rd lunar month, you will see something unparalleled in the modern world. Millions of people pilgrimage to a mountain to worship a myth. They don't worship a specific god, or a Buddha, or a political leader. They worship the Hung Kings, the founders of that lost Van Lang kingdom. It is a national holiday, a day where an entire country looks back 4,000 years and says, "This is where we began." Vietnam is perhaps the only country in the world with a national holiday dedicated to its mythical ancestors. So, did the kingdom of Xich Quy actually exist? Was there really a man who could walk underwater? Was there really a sack of 100 eggs? If you are looking for stone ruins like the pyramids, maybe not. But if you measure a civilization by its endurance, then Xich Quy is one of the strongest empires in human history. It survived the Bronze Age collapse. It survived the 1,000-year occupation. It survived the wars of the 20th century. The Red Demon didn't die. It just evolved. And today, the descendants of the dragon and the fairy are still here, writing the next chapter of their story. History tells us what happened, but mythology tells us who we are. What do you think? Was this just a story to explain geography? Or is it a memory of a lost ancient civilization like Atlantis? If you enjoyed this deep dive into Asian mythology, you might be surprised to know that the magic crossbow wasn't the only ancient superweapon. Click this video right here to learn about the Greek fire that saved Constantinople. And don't forget to subscribe to join our tribe. I'll see you in the next one.